Personal foul, unnecessary roughness.
It kind of seems like there's a target on my head.
Oh my goodness.
That's going to be suspension, fine.
I could see if it was a fine or something, but not a suspension.
There's a penalty flag. Vontez! They're calling Vontez Burfict.
I mean, there has always been a target on my head. Vontez Burfict via The Athletic. Unnecessary roughness. It is a call that a lot of players get flagged with in their NFL careers, especially those on the defensive side of the ball, especially more recently ever since the NFL has been doing more to protect quarterbacks. However, some players tend to get this penalty more than others, and to go even further, there are the players who are known for being extra dirty. Who is the dirtiest player in the NFL? Well, according to KTO, it's Bill Romanowski, and I highly recommend you check out his video on him. But in my opinion, I think that individual could have been superseded by someone else. The player that I'm talking about today was so notorious from being a dirty player that teams steered away from him. From the very beginning, he wasn't drafted, had trouble being signed as a free agent, and received multiple suspensions. Yet he was so talented that he still managed to make it to the Pro Bowl in his career. However, Vontez Burfict today is in exile, the first player in NFL history to be suspended for an entire season, 12 games, plus any playoff games, because of on-field infractions, and with his very recent arrest, the outlook of him ever returning to the NFL is very bleak. So why is Vontez Burfict considered to be the most dirtiest player in the NFL? Well, today, we're going to be figuring that out. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here, and guys, we are giving away a PlayStation 5 to anyone that subscribed to this channel, turned on our notifications, and that's it. Whether you're an old subscriber or a new subscriber, you will enter for a chance to win a PlayStation 5. I also wanted to take a moment to shout out the latest member of Mike Mafia, Longo Tavir. Thank you for joining Mike Mafia. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. Vontez Burfict is a 6'1", 248-pound Corona, California native who excelled in high school at the linebacker position. In his prep days, he was listed as a 5-star recruit and was considered the #1 inside linebacker prospect in the nation. Even in high school, Burfict was known for laying out the opposition. He was so intense that his own mother stated in an interview just last year that fellow parents would come up to her and ask Burfict not to hit their son so hard. The hits were even low on quarterbacks and were sometimes helmet to helmet and other illegal maneuvers, but he got away with a lot more back then. After first committing to USC, he swapped to Arizona State University on signing day and joined the Sun Devils alongside 3 fellow high school teammates and became ASU's historically highest recruit. Burfict, however, had struggled academically in high school. Everyone was unsure how he would meet NCAA eligibility requirements. Somehow, Burfict qualified academically, and just a few games into the season, went on to be ranked second in the team with 30 tackles, although only starting in half of the games. In his first game, he destroyed the Idaho State quarterback in a hit that probably left the quarterback seeing stars. With 69 tackles logged at the end of his freshman season, Burfict was named Pac-10 Defensive Freshman of the Year and a Freshman All-American. In his sophomore year, although he was considered to be on the watch list for several National Collegiate Defensive Awards, his personal foul penalties began to add up, and his actions even resulted in an ASU loss to Stanford. Thus, he was benched on and off beginning in early October. Although first he had adamantly refused to come out of the Stanford game, Vontez returned to finish off with 90 tackles in his sophomore campaign, won Pac-10 Defensive MVP, and became a first-team All-American. Sporting News even coined him the meanest man in college football. Not sure if that is a compliment or an insult. His junior year statistics were down dramatically, and Burfict's problems off of the field were often highlighted, such as fights with his own teammates after practice. Even though in a slump, Burfict announced that he would declare for the NFL draft after that junior season. Perhaps the most dramatic statistic of Burfict's time at Arizona State were his 22 personal foul penalties in 37 games. Burfict's woes continued as he prepared for the draft. At the NFL Combine in 2012, his performance was more than subpar, as his 5.09 50-yard dash time was logged as the slowest of all the linebackers. Due to an injured hamstring, he didn't participate in the short shuttle or the cones drills at that event either. His Wanderlich score was only an 18 out of a possible 50, and it was rumored that he didn't fare well in the club interviews either. He did participate in Arizona State's Pro Day, in which he would put up average numbers. Just before the draft, worse news came from the once collegiate defensive standout. Jay Glazer stated that Burfict had failed the drug test at the NFL Combine, and later in an interview, Burfict confirmed that he had been using marijuana. In pre-draft rankings, he was predicted to be the 10th best available inside linebacker. It came to light that many NFL front offices were just not interested in Vontaze Burfict. An NFC area scout told The Athletic in April of 2012 that he's going to get in trouble because he cannot sublimate his own selfish desires below the good of the team. Somebody's going to take him based on talent. I wouldn't touch this guy. Vontaze did not get an NFL draft phone call and instead was signed to the Bengals as an undrafted free agent for a 3-year, $1.44 million deal, which included a signing bonus that wasn't even enough for a monthly payment on a home, a measly $1,000. However, Burfict was given his chance to prove himself early when in the second game of the season, the weak side linebacker Thomas Howard suffered a season-ending knee injury. Vontaze became a starter just over a week following that game and played almost 85% of the snaps and racked up 127 tackles. However, Burfict all of a sudden didn't become a perfect polished player when he put on an NFL uniform, but at first he seemed to not be quite as violent as he was in the past. It wasn't until January 3rd that he was flagged for his first unnecessary roughness penalty, which was against Houston, and amazingly, he went his entire rookie season without a fine from the NFL. However, in 2013, Burfict seemed to suddenly become a little more comfortable on the NFL gridiron and was quickly back to his dirty ways. In a September game against Green Bay, he received his first NFL fine, a $10,000 fine for an after-the-play low cheap shot to the groin on tight end Ryan Taylor. In that same game, Burfict also received a $21,000 fine for a hit on a defensive receiver in Jamal James. Then on October 13th against the Buffalo Bills, Burfict cost the Bengals 45 yards in penalties and for a face mask flag. The NFL again sent him a letter fining him for $7,785. By the end of October, Burfict was once again fined for spearing the Jets' Stephen Hill with his helmet. The fine price this time was $21,000. His total 2019 fine money was just under $60,000. Note that his annual salary was well under $500,000 for that season. However, his play, no matter how dirty it was consistent as he played in 96% of the snaps. He had several turnover-producing plays and 3 sacks that would earn him a Pro Bowl nod and soon a hefty payday. In 2014, Burfict was given a $20 million extension, with $6.9 million guaranteed by Cincinnati, which would lead you to think that he would now have no more worries about any impending fines. That season, surprisingly, Burfict was only fined once for $25,000, but it seemed as he was, if it was even possible, becoming an even dirtier player. That $25,000 fine was for Burfict's WWE wrestling move of twisting the ankles of not only Cam Newton, but also Greg Olsen in the Bengals matchup against the Carolina Panthers. As you can imagine, both Cam Newton and Greg Olsen were unhappy with Burfict's actions and called for his suspension. Even a Carolina Panthers receiver ended up with a concussion due to one of Burfict's hits in that game. Injuries caught up with Burfict in 2014 as he missed 2 games due to a concussion, then was out of the last 9 games due to a knee injury that eventually led to microfracture surgery after that season. Burfict returned as a leader in a Bengals defense that was ranked 11th in yards and 2nd in points for the following season. In November 2015, the Bengals and Steelers were facing off against each other in the midst of a playoff race. Remember when Le'Veon Bell suffered that season-ending knee injury when he was a top back in Pittsburgh? Well, that was on November 1st, 2015. Guess who made the tackle on him that ultimately caused him to blow out his knee? Yep, Vontaze Burfict. Several Steelers players said after the fact that Burfict was celebrating that injury. When the Steelers and Bengals met for the second time that season on December 13, 2015, Burfict was fined for 3 different plays, 2 of which were unnecessary roughness penalties and the third for a low hit on Ben Roethlisberger.
You know, I think that he definitely was diving in low and going for my leg, so it's tough. I'm just glad I didn't get hurt.
Whether he was intentionally pushed or not, the dive from Burfict was blatantly low on the Steelers quarterback. There actually wasn't a flag on that specific play, but after the post-game NFL review, it still ended up in fine money for Burfict. His fine tally for that game against Pittsburgh was just under $70,000. Anyway, the Cincinnati Bengals won the AFC North that season and would earn the number 3 seed and would face the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. In that AFC wildcard game, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh went head-to-head for the 3rd time that season, and this time Vontaze Burfict was out for blood. He got to Roethlisberger early and on a legal sack. Big Ben hit the turf so hard that he had to leave the field via medical cart with a shoulder injury. While Ben was out and Landry Jones was in, Burfict picked off Jones, showboated all the way towards the far end zone and to the tunnel that led to Cincinnati's locker room. That wildcard score was 16-15 Pittsburgh with only 1 minute and 36 seconds left in the game. The next play, Jeremy Hill fumbled and the Steelers recovered the ball at their own 9-yard line. Roethlisberger heroically returned to the game and moved the Steelers 44 yards to just past midfield. Only 22 seconds remained in the game. What happened next, arguably, could have changed one player's life forever, all thanks to the dirty play of Vontaze Burfict. Ben Roethlisberger dropped back for a pass intended for Antonio Brown, a pass that was too high and was airmailed over Brown's head. Burfict, like a runaway train, well after the pass was deemed incomplete, came roaring in from the side, torpedoing into the side of Antonio Brown's head.
Penalty flag.
Oh my goodness. That's going to be suspension, fine.
That hit is often debated in circles today as the potential cause of the demise of Antonio Brown, because ever since that hit, Antonio Brown struggles to be the same man that he once was, and many NFL fans, analysts, and experts suspect Antonio Brown to have CTE as a result of it. Burfict would be flagged for unnecessary roughness, and Adam Pac-Man Jones also received a flag for unsportsmanlike behavior. That advanced Pittsburgh to within field goal range, and the Steelers then teed up a 35-yard field goal, sealing the win, and the Cincinnati Bengals haven't had a winning record since. The NFL gave Vontaze Burfict a 3-game suspension to begin the 2016 season. When he returned, it was in a game against the Patriots that Burfict was given his first letter from the NFL for 2016. Stomping on Patriots running back LeGarrette Blount, a dirty and very unnecessary action earned Burfict a $75,000 fine. The fines were getting larger as Burfict had not learned a lesson and his maliciousness seemed to become more villainous with every season. Burfict was not suspended for the stomp as the replay was not clear on if a stomp actually occurred. On November 20th, 2016, he got the crowd involved. Buffalo Bills fans can get quite rowdy, and in a Cincinnati loss to Buffalo, Burfict threw up double birds towards the stands. The NFL fined Vontaze Burfict $12,154 for that incident, which in my opinion is kind of a random number because why not just 12,000? Why the extra 154? If you can figure it out, let me know in the comments. Burfict finished the 2016 season playing only 62% of the defensive snaps with 101 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 passes defended, 2 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. The dirty play of Vontaze Burfict in 2017 began in training camp. The Bengals running back Gio Bernard had just returned to practice after rehabbing an ACL tear in 2016. An outright mid-practice brawl began when Vontaze Burfict tackled Bernard by diving low right at his surgically repaired knee. This was in a drill that was supposed to be wrap-up only. Then, in preseason, Chiefs fullback Anthony Sherman was in the middle of a passing route looking the other direction when Burfict took a cheap shot and leveled him. Sherman is not an easy guy to knock down either. He's 242 pounds, and luckily for him, he was not injured on the play. It was a backslide for Burfict, who was told time and time by the office in New York City to clean up his act on the field. The first reports were that Burfict would be suspended 5 games to start the regular season for that dirty play on Sherman, but it was later shortened to 3 games. Throughout the 2017 season, Burfict, in addition to missing time due to suspensions, missed quite a few games due to injuries as well. Burfict was ejected from his first game in November of 2017 against the Tennessee Titans in a play involving Burfict making a late hit on a Titans player out of bounds, then making contact with a game official, the latter which wasn't caught on camera. In 2017, Burfict only played 51% of the snaps for the Bengals defense, and the time he would see on the field would become even less than that for the future to come. In March 2018, Burfict was dinged for using performance-enhancing drugs. The suspension kept him out of the first 4 games of the 2018 season. Shortly after returning on October 14, 2018, the Bengals again faced their foes in the Steelers, with 3 of Burfict's tackles again on the review list of the NFL. One play was where Burfict came in crashing late to a party, again laying an elbow to the helmet of Antonio Brown, a player who couldn't risk any more head injuries and had to leave the game after that blow. Burfict dodged a suspension this time but received the largest fine of his career, totaling $112,000. In 7 seasons with the Bengals, Burfict accumulated over $4.5 million in fines and forfeited play. In March 2019, after they had attempted to trade Burfict several times, the Cincinnati Bengals released him. Only a free agent for 24 hours, the Las Vegas Raiders, who now had former Bengals defensive coach Paul Guenther as their defensive coordinator and are a team that is historically known for embracing a dirty player or two, signed Burfict to a 1-year, $2 million deal, and he quickly became a captain. However, in the 100th season of the NFL, it would be a far from complete season for Burfict, as his dirty play would abruptly come to an end. Just 4 games into the season, in a game against the Colts, Indianapolis tight end Jack Doyle had just caught a low pass and was slow getting up to continue the play when Burfict came steamrolling in with a helmet-to-helmet hit. Indianapolis head coach Frank Reich spoke to the Indy Star after the game, saying that was a pretty vicious hit. Thankfully, Jack Doyle came out of that one clean with no concussion symptoms. When someone does something like that, attacks one of your players, that's just not supposed to be in the game. And when it's against one of your players, you naturally have a reaction. I'm just glad they did what they did at the game, and the follow-up action seems very appropriate. The NFL had finally had enough of the repeat offender, and that resulted in Burfict being suspended for the remainder of the 2019 NFL season. This past offseason, he was released by the Raiders and has not been signed by another team. He was reinstated by the NFL in February of 2020, and rumors floated around that he was looking to clean up his act. According to Tom Pelissero via Burfict's agent, Vontaze has spent the entire offseason studying and learning the proper code of conduct for participation in the NFL. He has watched tape, talked with coaches and NFL experts, doing everything he can to conform his passionate play to the rules of the NFL. This is a serious issue not only for Vontaze, but all players, and he is serious about doing things the right way and being a leader and playing football the right way. However, Burfict seems to not only be violent on the field but off of it as well, as in the early morning hours of December 5th, he was arrested in Las Vegas on a misdemeanor battery charge. The details are yet to be released, but the DA has requested prosecution of the case. That latest saga of Vontaze Burfict probably derails his return to the NFL. However, that is more than likely a good thing for his opponents, who never quite knew if Burfict would be specifically out for blood. For many, it seemed like he always was.